Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all following the news because there is so much to get caught up on every single second as we now are on the precipice of entering Israel's war with Iran. And you don't want to miss any of it because every single second there's a little hint that is coming out from either Israel, from the United States, from Tucker, Tulsi, the resistance, something that is showing us that this is a terrible, terrible idea and will only backfire for innocent civilians, for the United States, for the global economy. And I'm just very worried about all of this. So joining me today to talk about all of this and his thoughts on what is going on right now is Omar Nashabe. He is a former advisor to the Lebanese Minister of the Interior. He's also a member of the UN expert group on gender justice and the law. And he joins me today. I'm very happy to have you here, Mr. Nashabe. How you doing today?
I'm fine. Well, fine. I mean, we can say we're fine, but a few kilometers from here, there's a genocide going on. So I'm not sure that we can say that we're fine. I mean, how can you be fine when the young kids are dying from starvation from the Israeli ongoing siege? And they're not allowing any food to come in, any medicine. There are kids dying of pain. Children, I mean, I'm sure you know, and many of the viewers have been following up, that, so many kids died and they had to do surgery on them without anesthesia. I mean, this is not a political issue. This is a humanitarian issue. And it seems like the world lost humanity. They don't have this feeling of compassion with people who are suffering and people who are being slaughtered. And everybody can see that. And nobody's doing anything really about it. And that's shocking. That's shocking.
Well, if you feel any compassion for, martyred children or amputee children, then you get called anti-Semitic now. It's really crazy how many people there are in this world who don't have a hateful bone in their body for any of our Jewish brothers and sisters, but immediately, if they have a problem with that, they get called anti-Semitic, right?
I think this is the idea of setting up the Zionist entity from in the beginning. From the beginning, I mean, the Israeli leaders have been saying that all along. I mean, I remember, as I grew up, I learned about Golda Meir, who said that we are people without land, who are taking a land without people. She considered that the Palestinians didn't exist, although the Palestinians are one of the most important populations of this part of the world. I mean, my grandfather, when he was sick in Lebanon, in the north of Lebanon, in Tripoli, he went to Jaffa, because there was a Palestinian hospital before 1948 in Jaffa. I mean, they were the best hospitals, the most educated people. In Beirut, we have the American University of Beirut. That university, most of its professors and the prominent professors were Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes from Palestine, who moved to Beirut thinking that it was only temporary and they would go back home. And they never went back home. So they stayed in Beirut. And that's why AUB, the American University of Beirut, it's such an important university because it all has all these educated people. The Palestinians are better educated and they have a lower illiteracy rate than any other Arab population. This is information that's important for people to know, I think. So, and Palestine is one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's a beautiful on the coast of the Mediterranean. So I think that the idea to actually occupy Palestine and colonize it wasn't based on this religious or wasn't based on something had to do with this romantic Jewish idea that they want to go back to a country that belonged to their ancestors 2,000 years ago. No, it's a pure colonial taking over the land of another population, taking its resources, building a new entity which would serve as a military base for Western powers to bully other countries in the region, especially after they discovered oil. So the West needed some power, some military might to scare away people. And now Trump is using it, openly. He's saying this support, this unconditional, extreme support for Israel and for Israel's war machine is evidence that he wants to use Israel as the bully in the whole region to scare away all the others and to take what's left of their resources that he still wasn't able to control. I mean, and that's horrendous. That is the core of the issue. It's not about and the Jewish people, you mentioned our brothers and sisters, the Jewish Voices for Peace in New York and all over the world. They're saying no. I mean, it's no, this idea was a complete lie. The idea that they want to create a nation that would protect the Jews. Israel is the number one cause for danger against the Jews everywhere around the world. And therefore, many Jewish voices are coming out and saying no. And when these Jewish voices come out and say no, then there's no raison d'etre for Israel anymore. Because the reason why the West and many people around the world supported Israel was they thought that, after the Holocaust, they need a nation where they would be protected from any, people who are racist, people who are attacking the Jews. Fine. How do you protect yourself? You don't protect yourself by bullying others and killing others and committing a genocide that is the most blatant genocide since the United Nations was created. You don't slaughter United Nations employees. Do you know, and maybe it's good to tell the viewers, that the Zionist entity, the Israeli army, has killed more UN employees than anyone since the creation of the United Nations. I mean, this is obscene. They killed hundreds of UN employees. They bombed schools that have a flag, a blue flag with the blue flag of the United Nations with a map of the whole world on it. They challenged the whole world by claiming that this is their right for self-defense. Is that how self-defense happened? Self-defense, now they're saying they're bombing Iran. They're sending all these bombers and missiles, destruction to Iran. They started and initiated this war while the negotiations were ongoing. It was scheduled for past Sunday. So how do you do that? I mean, you tell people, I'm not going to bomb you. There's negotiations going on. These negotiations have been going on since 2015 with the Iranians over the nuclear peaceful program of the Iranian people. I mean, the negotiate, and all of a sudden, on Friday the 13th, they start this massive attack on the Iranian people and the Iranian peaceful nuclear program. And I have to remind also the viewers, if you don't mind, that Iran signed the NPT, the non-proliferation treaty, whereas and its program is a peaceful program, whereas the Zionist nation, Israel, did not sign the NPT. And we have evidence, and the whole world saw that evidence that came out many years ago with Vanunu, that they have around 90 warheads with nuclear weapons. So it's proven that the Israelis have nuclear weapons, and they didn't sign the NPT. They do not allow the IAEA inspectors to go to Dimona and inspect the site. The Iranians did the exact opposite. They said, our program is a peaceful program. There are instructions by the supreme leaders that this program is a peaceful program for medical purposes, for energy, for agricultural research. And I think that's why the Americans are so mad, because the Iranians were able to develop their capacity, their scientific capacity using nuclear energy. So they want to destroy this program, and Iran has the right. It's their basic fundamental right, according to international law, to develop their nuclear program for peaceful purposes. There is no evidence, even after the IAEA report was out, that is a bit dubious. But that report does not say that there's evidence of nuclear weapons in Iran. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. However, when they bomb Iran in that way, and they kill children, and they bomb hospitals, and they slaughter innocent civilians, and they threaten day and night to kill the supreme leader, I wouldn't think personally that it would be problematic to think about developing a nuclear weapon to defend yourself.
Of course.
I mean, this is only logical thinking. Anyone who would be in the place of the Iranians would think that way, I think, if they want to really protect themselves. Especially after the threats that were repeated by Trump yesterday, that were completely unacceptable. I mean, talking to people and telling them, oh, you know what? I'm not going to kill you now. Maybe I'll kill you tomorrow. What is this? What is this world we're living in? I mean, you can, let's be logical. You can talk about your adversary and say, I want to take you to justice. I want to arrest you. I want to investigate you. But telling people I want to kill you, I mean, this is a language of gangsters and criminals. This is not a language by a nation state that is responsible, especially since Mr. Netanyahu. And, Mr. Netanyahu is wanted for the International Criminal Court. He's wanted.
Yes.
And it's not the prosecutor who issued the arrest warrant. It's a panel of judges who issued and who are now, Trump made sanctions against the judges. And they forced the prosecutors to step down because they accused them of sexual harassment. I mean, that's typical Mossad and intelligence work against the tribunal. In fact, The Guardian had published a whole report of the Mossad, how they threatened Fatou Bensouda, who was the prosecutor before Karim Khan was appointed as prosecutor. And she said it, and The Guardian published details, and Guardian is a respectable source of information in the West. This is a British newspaper that published evidence, and it put its credibility on the line and published evidence that the chief of the Mossad had threatened directly the prosecutor in the International Criminal Court. But how come Ursula von der Leyen, the chief of the European Union, yesterday she calls Netanyahu, and she says it proudly that she called Netanyahu and reasserted Europe's position of the right of Israel to defend itself. She's calling a wanted fugitive from justice. How can you do that and get away with it? The European Union had taught us so many years and talked over the media and published so many numerous reports that the ICC is the source of justice in the world that would prevent genocide, prevent crimes of war, prevent crimes against humanity. And we should hold anyone who violates this international law accountable, especially international humanitarian law. And now, all of a sudden, when it comes to Israel, she's saying Israel has the right to defend itself. That's obscene. When you give
only Putin and Assad are worthy, targets.
And Omar al-Bashir also. Putin,
Yes.
Assad, Omar al-Bashir, and it was called the Africa Court, because out of the 12 cases that it's looking into, 9 were in Africa. So it's like a court created by the Northern Hemisphere rich nations of the West to prosecute, to use it to manipulate the people from the Southern Hemisphere by using the context of justice. Well, let's talk about justice. I mean, what the Europeans have done to Africa is no justice. It's exploitation of the resources. It's destruction of the culture. It's destruction of these people and depriving them from flourishing. I mean, look at Nigeria. Look at Liberia. Nigeria is one of the richest countries in oil in the whole world. It's living misery because of the exploitation of the West. So that also, takes us to the idea, if you allow me to say, that any weakness in this confrontation with the United States and Israel, any weakness of Iran is a weakness for the whole people in the Southern Hemisphere who are being exploited by the Western countries in the United States in the North. Any setback by the Iranians will be a setback for all free people all around the world. Yes, you can have remarks, you can have comments over the Iranian regime. You can say, this is not fair, what it's doing here and there. Yes, you can do that. However, in this confrontation, people have to make a choice. And Iran was aggressed by Netanyahu, is wanted by the ICC, by these Jewish entity, the Israeli entity, Zionist entity. And I don't want to call it Jewish because there are so many Jewish voices for peace and Jewish voices who are for justice and for Palestine and for respecting international dignity and international law. This entity that received 3 orders by the highest international court, the International Court of Justice, issued 3 orders that are legally binding orders to the Zionist entity to let the food in and the medicine in for starving children in Gaza, and they did not comply. On the contrary, they challenged the ICJ, they challenged the international community, they challenged the United Nations, they challenged everyone, and they keep doing what they're doing, this genocide that is ongoing for now 20 months in an area that is not larger than 360 square kilometers, 2 million people being slaughtered. Today, at this very second when we're talking, there are children who are dying of hunger in 2025. This is completely unacceptable.
I fully agree with you that what you said, any weakness in Iran right now and their ability to defend their sovereignty and their ability to put this fire out is a weakness in for all the free people of the world. I 100% agree. How do you think that a potential U.S. intervention or declaration of war on Iran at this point, which is very possible, I think it's more than likely, how do you think this would impact Iran's ability to defend itself? And how do you think it would impact the United States, looking at Strait of Hormuz, Red Sea, military bases, Gulf assets, and all this and more?
I think it would be insane. And I'm not exaggerating, because the Trump administration has so many challenges. It's facing challenges internally. He launched a war against immigrants, and he himself is an immigrant. I mean, this is like obscene. I mean, even the German chancellor, he got him a birth certificate of his father, who was born in Germany. I mean, he showed it to him on TV. I mean, this is ridiculous. The guy is an immigrant, and the United States is a country of immigrants. And that's the secret. That's the success of the United States. Now he wants to, wage a war against the large population in America that is the fastest growing population, the Hispanic population in America, and saying that these are immigrants, they don't deserve to be Americans, they are criminals, they are whatever. I mean, this is clearly a racist approach. I mean, and he has all this trouble in the United States. He has trouble with Europe because he wants to own Greenland. He has trouble with Latin America. He owns Panama. He has trouble with the Chinese, obviously, with the tariffs and all that. He has trouble. He couldn't do anything in Ukraine. And now he wants to start a new war, a new huge war with nuclear weapons. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, I think the world needs to wake up and say, what are you doing? I mean, we already have a lot of problems with the environment. We already have challenges within, inequalities all around the world. And on top of that, you want to start a war that could actually spread and turn into a total nuclear war? I mean, this is insane. I mean, he's meeting with the Pakistani head of the army, chief of staff of the army, I think either today or tomorrow. He wants to try to manipulate the issue and see. I don't think the Americans will enter the war before finding an agreement with the Pakistanis, because the Pakistani, discourse was that, no, we're not gonna accept this. And, I'm afraid that this could turn into a larger conflict, because it will reignite the tension between India and Pakistan. That Trump was so proud that he actually was able to create, a peaceful exit. Well, he tried to create a peaceful exit there, and that's a good thing. Let's say it the way it is. It's a good thing that there was no complete, full-fledged confrontation between India and Pakistan, because that will lead to so much destruction, and both nations have nuclear weapons. Now, he's trying to actually create a new war. I mean, a new, larger war than what is going on. There is a lot of destruction already, and many people dying, innocent people being slaughtered. But he wants to, enlarge it. And I think this will create big dangers, and I'm worried. I'm worried about radiation. I'm worried about foolishness by some armies to bomb some locations that have nuclear reactors, and I'm worried because the radiation will create something that I don't want to even, raise the issue, but maybe we should. Maybe we should, because we are so close. And there's a large population density in Iran, in India, in Pakistan. These millions, hundreds of millions of people who are one of the largest concentration of people in the world, and the whole globe is located in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iran, Afghanistan, this area. And therefore, if there will be a larger war, there's a danger that there will be serious, attacks on nuclear sites that would create radiation, and that would create, catastrophes for humanity. So I think it's a very delicate issue. I prefer that, everybody would take a few steps back and calm down, and, but apparently what we are hearing from the Israelis is that they want more bombing, more destruction. They started this bombing and they want more. And they are bombing hospitals in Iran. I just read a report by, hospitals being
Children's hospitals.
Children's hospital. Yeah, you read that report. And the Iranians are hitting back. Now they hit back. I just read a report just a few minutes ago. I read a report that the Iranian radio station, the Israeli radio station, just announced that they are not exporting gas anymore because their facilities were hit. Now, this is also a clear indication, since the Israelis are announcing this, that they will bomb the oil refineries and gas and resources in Iran. If they will do that, that would create a bigger problem for the whole world, because the oil prices are going to increase very fast. Although the oil price is going up, I think since Friday, the oil prices are going up, but slowly. If
Hmm.
they will bomb the refineries, I think the oil prices will go up big time. And this will be a bigger problem for China because China is the factory of the world. It is the number one customer of oil. And it will make more money for Russia, more money for Iran, more money for Saudi Arabia. I don't think that's really in the interests of the Trump administration. Now, if the Iranians will actually decide also to close the the Persian or Arabian Gulf from the Strait of Hormuz, that would also create a bigger crisis because there will be I mean, most of the oil comes from that Gulf, so it will be a bigger crisis for the whole world. I don't know. I mean, what is this guy thinking? I think Trump and the Israelis are thinking that the Iranians will back down. They will be afraid and they will give up and they will say, okay, you know what? We will give up all our principles and we will give up all our, history, and the Islamic revolution in Iran will collapse. Because if the supreme leader made a very clear speech, he cannot go back on his speech. If he goes back on his speech, he will lose credibility and the whole regime will collapse. The whole Islamic revolution will collapse. He cannot go back, and he is not used to that because the Islamic revolution in Iran is a Shia revolution. It comes from principles that come from their history. They were slaughtered. They were treated by the others, by the Umayyads, with brutality and injustice. And Hussein, who is the grandson of the Prophet, was slaughtered by the Umayyads. And the banner of the Shia is that we were mistreated and we were slaughtered. But however, the principle of justice lives on in our hearts and minds. This is the motto of the Shia and the Islamic revolution in Iran. Hence, even if they will be killed, and even if they will be martyred, that will fuel more, more feelings of certainty that the only way forward is to fight the enemy, even if you will be martyred during that fight. So the calculations are completely different from the calculations of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, who are thinking that in this mentality of a bully, that we hit them and we hit them hard, they're going to cry, they're going to be weak, they're going to give up, and they're going to, sign the agreement where they give up their whole nuclear program, which is a peaceful nuclear program. That's what their ambitions are. They believe in that.
It's like, how do they? I think Trump just really doesn't have any understanding whatsoever about these people. For him, his whole world is business. And I really believe that's why he hates them. He doesn't understand them.
But you know why? Excuse me. But you know why? Because when he visited this region and he met with these Arab leaders in the Gulf and the Saudi leaders, he thought that they are homogeneous with the rest of the people in the region. So he thought they think the same way. I mean, look at these, he doesn't realize that this region is not homogeneous. It has a lot of diversity. It's like a kaleidoscopic region. It has many people. This is a passage. This is a link between Asia, Africa, and Europe. This is where many people came to this part of the world and mingled and exchanged. And there are various ideologies and ideas and directions. And when he arrived to Riyadh, and the Saudis came to him and paid him all this money, I don't know how many trillions of dollars, and the Emiratis paid him, and the Qataris want to please him. He thought, well, the Qataris, Emiratis, Bahrainis, they are all puppets and they all pay me this huge amounts of money. So, these people only care about their financial well-being. They care about their financial interests. And they just want to build the tallest building, like in Abu Dhabi, the tallest building. They want to build a Legoland for kids in the desert. They want to build, a restaurant that moves, turns, I don't know what. And they want to buy a big Mercedes with golden wheels. And, he thinks that the whole region is about that. It's about people who want to have more wealth. There are people also who hold on to their dignity, and there are people who also think on the long run. And you know what? One more thing is that these Arab nations, they are not thinking well. They don't have this capacity to think that if Iran loses this war, they're going to pay the price.
Of course.
If the Shah of Iran will take over Iran, he will make an alliance with Israel. And why do they need the Arabs? Then they will take what's left of the resources of the Arabs, you know?
Of course, of course. The Shah was used to foment anti-Arabism and Arab nationalism. It's like, and this the son of the Shah, whatever grandson he is, you know, this guy probably would have been executed by his own father, given how much of a raging Zionist he is. He's celebrating these Iranian kids getting murdered right now. I do want to say one thing though about what you just mentioned about all these, you know, Arab leaders building these skyscrapers, thinking they're getting closer to God or something. But on the flip side, you had Trump, who said very nice things, saying how brave and courageous our brothers in Yemen are, and you know they are even more hardcore to the cause of putting death before dishonor than maybe even Iran. You know, and Trump had a lot of nice things to say about them. Do you think there's a chance that, in the same way that Trump was impressed by their bravery and their courage in the face of U.S. military might, and he said, you know, he literally called them brave warriors. Do you think maybe he might possibly feel some same attitude towards Iran, given how much of a beating they are dealing the Zionist entity right now?
Well, I'm not an expert on how Trump functions. I don't know. This guy is a bit weird. I mean, sometimes he makes decisions and he says things that are completely obscene. I mean, everybody, I think, would agree with me that some of the discourse that he has is really not very logical, especially when he talked about Gaza and that he owns Gaza and he wants to build a Riviera. I mean, that was, and then he changed his mind. He said, no, that's not what he meant. And, you know, and so I'm not sure about, you know, he doesn't have these, you know, he's a businessman. He's not a politician. He's not a very articulate person. He just cares about money and thinks that accumulation of wealth is his primary goal, and he's ready to sacrifice anything for that. Now, the Yemenis, the Yemenis and the Ansarullah, the Houthis, what are called Houthis, they are Ansarullah, they had a long war with Saudi Arabia and with the Arabian Gulf countries before that. And, you know, the Saudis paid, you know, blank checks. I mean, they were ready to pay huge amounts for anyone to get rid of this group of fighters in the mountains of Yemen, and they couldn't. So all of the money, who pays more? I mean, you know, the Saudis were ready to pay massive amounts for anyone, any mercenaries, any other nation that would come and get rid of the Houthis. You know, there were many Egyptian pilots who came to fly the new fighter jets for the Saudi army that they don't have enough pilots in Saudi Arabia to fly them. So they got, you know, pilots from Egypt, and they bombed, you know, Yemen several times, and they committed so many massacres in Yemen. The Emiratis too committed many massacres that are also actually on the record with the United Nations. You know, the mass rape also of prisoners, of Yemeni prisoners with sticks and all, and horrible. I mean, and the United Nations published these reports in the past, and they occupied Socotra, and they couldn't defeat the Yemenis. So the Saudis, they don't have a problem now. They didn't have a problem when the Americans created this coalition that collapsed. You remember the coalition? They created an international coalition to break the naval siege that the Yemenis imposed on the Israeli entity. And they created this international coalition. It collapsed because, you know, they couldn't agree. And the Americans wanted to be the boss, but they didn't want to sacrifice anything. They remembered USS Cole, you know, that actually blew up in a port, in a Yemeni port in the past. So they were incapable. And the Yemenis actually achieved something that no one else achieved before. They imposed a naval siege without having a navy. That is unprecedented in history. I mean, and therefore they proved that they are mighty. And I have a friend of mine who's a professor of international law in Hudaydah in Yemen. I was talking to him over the phone the other day. And I told him, you know, my friend, you are, and I want to congratulate him. He's now a member in the Shura. He was voted in the Shura. And he told me He told me, I told him, what you're doing is very dangerous. It could put you in a total confrontation with the international community. So-called international community is doing nothing about genocide in Gaza. But, you're cutting a main maritime route that goes all the way to the Suez Canal. And therefore, it's a challenge for world economy. And therefore, you might be facing very large firepower and international power against you. And his answer was, in a world where children are slaughtered and a genocide happens and no one does anything about it, our life is not important. That was what he said. And he truly believes in that. And I think these hundreds of thousands of Yemenis that you watch them every Friday who get together to show solidarity with the Palestinian people, to say no to genocide, to say that they need the dignity of the people of Palestine, the dignity of the people of Lebanon, the dignity of Syrians, of Iranians, of all the people in the region. I mean, human dignity, was this principle completely dissipated in the minds and hearts of the Western world, or did it not exist in the first place? And it was all a trick to actually take people like me all the way to the United States, teach them about human rights and justice. And it was all a trick, and it wasn't really truthful. And I believed it. Jackson, I really believed in human rights. And I worked for human rights. And I believe that this is a wonderful principle, and that Eleanor Roosevelt, the late Eleanor Roosevelt, had made this commission for human rights in the 40s. And they did this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, then all these conventions and all these agreements all around the world showing us that, the West believes in human dignity, believes in a better world where people would respect each other. And comes 2023 and the beginning of the genocide. And here is the West. Here is the West refusing. Here is the Europeans, the French, the Hungarians, the British, the Italians refusing to arrest Netanyahu, who is wanted for crimes against humanity, because starvation is a crime against humanity. Anyway, the Zionist entity by itself uses apartheid. It's very clear. Like, for example, let me give the Chaim Weizmann Center for Research that was bombed by the Iranian army, recently, because it's a military target, because this center is a center for military research. No one who is non-Jewish, even if they have an Israeli passport, can work in that center. That is a confirmed exact information. That is just an example of the apartheid system there, that considers people, just because they are from a religious group, superior to other people. That's apartheid. And apartheid, according to the Rome Treaty and to international criminal law, is a crime against humanity, not a crime of war, not a crime against Palestinians, not a crime against Arabs. The idea of having a system of apartheid is a crime against all of humanity. And that is what the Zionist entity is all about. And that is why we keep saying from the river to the sea. Because from the river to the sea is a main principle, that from the river to the sea, there shouldn't be an apartheid regime. That's it. So that's the idea.
Well, I don't know what to say. I'm honestly just...
I can't hear you anymore.
Just shocked that we're even having this conversation, and I agree with you that it's absolute madness. So, Omar Nashabe, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I want to speak to you again soon, and hopefully speak to you in Beirut very soon as well. I hope to get back.
Yes, and we have to welcome you in the south. The south of Lebanon is, you came last time, but you should come again. We have a beautiful coast, beautiful beaches in Sur. And Sur, that was bombed by the Israelis. I was there with my wife and kids last week. People are rebuilding, although the Americans are depriving Lebanon from rebuilding the south and doing reconstruction. The people are doing it themselves. If they can't fix the whole house, they'll fix one room, 2 rooms. If you have a restaurant, you can't fix the whole restaurant, you fix only part of it. But people want to live, because people here love life and they are generous. And if I would like to end this by saying, if you would allow me, that, Europeans can come and live here with the people in the region. We are very friendly people. You know, my mother, she's German. She could have been a Jewish German woman who escaped Germany because there was discrimination and came and lived here. Well, she's not Jewish, but she could have been. And she came here. She fell in love with an Arab man, and then he passed away, and she stayed here, and she has property, and she lives here like a Lebanese. And she could have lived in Palestine like a Palestinian. This region has, as I said, has many people who came from abroad and lived here and became, owners of this region. This is a diverse region. We cannot have an apartheid regime or a Zionist state here. We only can have countries that respect diversity. Therefore, there's no place for Israel here. And it will not last. No matter how long it will take, it will not last.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.